Welcome back, Shop Rats. Today it's a Talk About It Tuesday, and our subject is exhausting. So exhausting. Today we're going to talk about exhausts and mufflers, how to pick them. We might even talk about headers. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
I must admit that when it comes to exhaust systems, headers, and mufflers, all of that, tube sizes, there are a million opinions. And sometimes I would like to take the muffler and see how well it really works in somebody's mouth. I'm going to give you my opinion and I'm going to become part of the noise. I'm going to start this out by saying I have preferences more based upon how I like the sound of an exhaust system, more so than I'm worried about its ultimate performance. There are some factors, there are some considerations, but I think in general, um, putting headers, a decent flowing exhaust, and some decent flowing mufflers on the car are advantageous. If you are going to be revving this thing up to 10,000 RPM and that's where it's going to run all the time, there might be some advantages to really doing the research and looking at the numbers and do some dyno testing and spending big money to make sure that you get the optimum premium exhaust system for the last ounce of flow on your vehicle. However, the reality is the stuff we deal with here at MKS, 90% of it is all streetcar stuff. Is there that much difference in the seat of your pants between a factory exhaust system and an aftermarket exhaust system? Yes, I do believe there is. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go with the Borla over the Flowmaster because that's going to give me 15 more horsepower. Anybody that says that is trying to sell you something. I personally think that people spend a lot more money than they need to for your average street car. And I get it. The marketing on all of these products is pretty aggressive, and everybody's trying to convince you that their latest and greatest product is the best thing. But let's just talk basic principles, and then I will share my personal preferences. Again, let me clarify that I'm talking about street cars. I'm not talking about race cars. That's a totally different world right there. Okay. Basic principles for me are the faster you can get the exhaust out of your engine and out the back end of your car, the better it is. The less restriction, the better. Now, I know there's a school of thought out there that says having exhaust back pressure makes your engine perform better. It keeps your valves from being destroyed. I think there's truth in that to a point, and there's research on it. I don't find it conclusive. As far as the burning or warping valves, let's face it, none of us are driving these cars 100,000 miles. How many miles do we really put on our toy cars? So, I don't take that stuff too seriously. I mean, even scoops that I drive on a regular basis, I doubt I put 3 or 4 thousand miles a year on that car. So let's keep things in context. I'm probably not even putting that much on it. So let's keep things in context and realize that we're not talking about daily drivers that we're going to be putting 100,000 miles on. I'm not saying that there aren't some people who don't have classic cars that they drive on a regular basis and they put 20,000 miles a year on. They're out there, but I think overall most of us are not doing that. So that's the context for this. The faster we can get the exhaust gas out of the engine and out of the exhaust system, the better the performance is going to be because it allows air to come into the engine faster. There can be a case for some cylinder scavenging. If you're getting good airflow through there, that helps draw in um, the intake mixture if the exhaust is flowing out well. Uh, Again, that's not what this is all about. I'm here to talk more about the principles than the details. So let me tell you a story. Years ago, I had an 85 Dodge D150 that had a 340 in it. It was an automatic transmission. I had headers on it, dual 3-inch exhaust through 3-inch Flowmasters. Matter of fact, I think it's the same mufflers that are on the GTS. 2-chamber Flowmasters. It was a fairly low line D150. The truck ran like a rape date. That thing screamed. It was stupid fast. And I think I ran in the 15s in the quarter mile with the 340 in it, if I remember right. It would haul, it would honk. And 15 seconds is pretty darn quick for a daily driver. The problem with it was a metal cab. It had no sound deadening in it. It didn't have the headliner pad in it or a headliner in it. And if you would drive that thing for more than about 20 miles, your ears would just ring and ring. And I mean, it was just, oh, it drove you right out of the cab. Now, I like a good loud exhaust system. Don't get me wrong. So I created some baffles to put on the end of the 3-inch exhaust pipe. They just basically slipped on. Um, they were actually kind of similar to a super trap, but not quite. And I put those on there and to make the truck more manageable for drivability. They were pretty good flow through from the 3-inch exhaust. It brought it down passage wise to about a 2.25 inch, I think it was, exhaust system. Definitely made the truck quieter. I didn't see any difference as far as the gas mileage in the truck. It didn't go up and it didn't go down. I did notice that when you would get up over about 4,000 RPM, it was definitely choking it down a little bit. It didn't flow as well. So take that for what it's worth. Now remember that I was talking about these little add-ons on the end like this big. So there's some science and stuff that goes into that. It's not the same as running a whole, 2.25 inch exhaust system. But even in that little distance, stuffing it down, overall, it did make a performance difference, but not mileage difference. Now pulling a trailer with it, where I didn't really rev it up a whole lot, I didn't notice much difference on the bottom end. It wasn't better, it wasn't worse. The beautiful thing about the day and age today is all the data is out there for most products, and things have been played with, scientifically studied, and if you want to take the time to research it, it's all out there. But I'm going to give you my basic approach. I don't believe in spending huge money on a street car for headers. Do I think that 2-inch primaries on a header are better than 1 7/8? Probably not on a street car. It's not going to make that much difference. 2.5-inch, whatever. Do I think running 3-inch exhaust over 4-inch exhaust or 4-inch over 3-inch makes a difference? Not for most street cars. I do know of an exception. I'll get to that in just a minute. Do I think that a Borla is better than a Flowmaster, is better than a whatever? I have my preferences because of tonality. If you look into the numbers, for most applications, they don't make a huge amount of difference as far as I'm concerned in performance for a street car. Did I mention we're talking about street cars? So I do know that my buddy had a 455 supercharged 671 oversped. I think it was 14-1. Oversped blower, 9.5-1 pistons. I think I got the pistons for him from Federal Mogul when I worked with Federal Mogul when I was a fuel pump engineer. So I think there were 9.5 to 10, maybe even 10-1 pistons. He had to run funny gas in it. He had to run, I think, 118 octane racing fuel in it to keep it from spark knocking. He also had a 200 shot of nitrous on top of that. It was a weight added 70 Chevelle, weighed over 5,000 pounds. I don't remember what the exact weight was. I know he had it weighed. It was a tank. The thing ran either in the high 9s or the low 10s through the exhaust on the track, and it was spinning coming out of the hole. It was a monster. He had 3-inch exhaust on it, and he upped it to 4-inch exhaust, and it did make a difference. He went from 3-inch Flowmasters to 4-inch Flowmasters. It made a difference. But that's not the average street car that any of us are driving, okay? So, again, if you do the math, if you do the research, you're going to see that information. But I'm talking about average street performance for the average guy driving the average muscle car or hot rod. I'm going to pick on a couple of my own cars as examples and tell you what I have on them and also tell you what I'm going with on some of the other cars that we have. We'll start with the Pro Street Dart GTS. That has Headman headers, standard 1 7/8 headers, nothing fancy, 3-inch collectors, pretty much straight 3-inch aluminized pipe, no bends, so it's a straight shot right out of the headers back to 2-chamber 3-inch Flowmasters. I'm pretty sure there are 2-chamber mufflers on there, and no tailpipes. Because of the narrowed rear end, I didn't bother. They just dump straight out the back of the car. There's no gas tank back there, so it's not hurting anything. Besides that, I'm lucky if I put 40 miles a year on that car. I hardly ever drive it. I hadn't driven it for years after we had the fire in it. So that car is loud. It's obnoxious. It sounds great. I love the ding that you get in the exhaust with the Flowmaster mufflers. It kind of has a little ting to it with every lump of the cam. I really like the sound when you rev it up. I just like the Flowmaster mufflers. I've heard other types of mufflers. They sound fine. It's just for my ear. I like the Flowmaster, and I think they work well. We move over to scoops. The reason I chose those mufflers, when Brad put the exhaust system on it, he bought a pre-bent kit. Good, nice, really nice exhaust kit. It has the same exact Hedman headers that I have on the GTS, 1.7/8 primary tube headers down to 3-inch collectors. I love those because they have both cars have I call them the ball joint connection instead of the old flat flange connection. So it's got a ball on the end of the header at the collector, and instead of having that flat bolted plate that always leaked. I really like that upgrade, and it was a beautiful design as far as I'm concerned. I'll be putting the same ones on the Challenger, likely be putting those same ones on the Duster as well, and want to get around to putting the 318 in Sassy. If I don't go with factory manifolds, which I'm thinking I might, because I have those, I'll definitely go with this Hedman headers. But anyway, 2-inch aluminized exhaust, I'm pretty sure on that. He had cherry bombs on it. They were fairly small cherry bombs, which is a very classic sound. Back in the day, I didn't run cherry bombs. I ran the straight through thrush mufflers. Back in the day, that was the sound we loved. In the 70s and the 80s, we liked that blatty thrush cherry bomb sound. I chose to take those off of the car because it's kind of our date car, and I when I would get on it, I'm not crazy about that particular sound. I could have lived with it, but Becky hated it. And so I took those off and I put the same exact mufflers that Joe has on the Charger. So let's talk about that. He has, I don't remember if he went 2-inch on those headers or not. They might be 1.7/8, but they might be 2-inch primary tube headers. They were factory coated headers that didn't last real well. We're going to be doing a project on that like we did on scoops to coat those headers so they don't continue to look terrible. But anyway, I believe he went 2.5-inch exhaust on that car. He did put, I think he put an H pipe on it. I don't think it's an X. I can't remember. I think it's an H pipe on it, which is supposed to give it a little bit more mellow exhaust tone as well as a little more torque because it does cross scavenging through the exhaust. And that goes back to 2.5-inch Dynamax. I had to write it down. Dynamax turbos, part number 17733 mufflers, and out through the tailpipes. I love the sound of that Charger. It's got a nice little cam in it. That big block got a nice little lump to it, and it's just a nice, quiet car that has some good throat. When I was deciding what mufflers I wanted to put on scoops, those are the exact same mufflers that I went with, and I couldn't be happier than with that. Becky likes riding in the car now because it's not so loud. We can talk to each other without having to scream at each other. And when you get on it, it doesn't blat. It's got a real nice mellow tone, but it's also louder, and you can hear the cam in it when it's idling, so it's got a nice lump. The car turns heads. I know whenever I pull in somewhere with it, like if I take it to Walmart, and I'm idling across the front of the store and going to find my parking spot because I have a reserved parking spot there. Ticks me off when somebody else uses it. It draws attention. It turns heads, and I really, really like the sound of those. Fat Fanny, the 47 Ford, has 2.5-inch exhaust custom bent at a local muffler shop through turbo mufflers that they had. I don't know what brand they were. They weren't a brand name that I recall. They weren't these dirt Dynamax ones. And back through tailpipes. It sounds good. I wish it had the Dynamax mufflers on it, but for what we're going to be doing with that car, it's nice and quiet, but still has a little throat. You just saw on the episode where I pulled it in the shop a week or two ago when I was pulling it down the driveway. It's got nice sound to it. It definitely does. And we went for a ride along in that too. As a matter of fact, I'm working on that car right now. I got to get a bushing for the brake pedal and a new cross pin because the pedal is really sloppy in there. Um, so we'll do more of a ride along, and I'm also going to be working on floors. I did temporary floors in there made out of wood, and I'm going to do metal floors, and we're going to put some sound deadening so all that transmission noise stays under the car and doesn't come into the cab. Because right now the transmission is wide open. There's nothing over it in the car. I never made a hump. So you get some gear whine once that planetary set kicks in when you are in drive. But anyway, the car sounds really nice, but I think my muffler of choice moving forward, whether it's 2.5 inch or 3 inch, I think I might go 3 inch on the Challenger, but I'm going to use these Dynamax mufflers because I like the tone. I don't care about getting every little last drop of horsepower out of any of my cars except for the Golden Mullet, and I'm going to show you what I'm going with for exhaust size on that. Remember that the Golden Mullet is a full-on race car. It is not probably going to be street legal. It is going to be a tube chassis built car. This is the stuff I'm going with on that car. I could just go open headers, but I want to put exhaust on it. This is 4 inch. Probably not putting mufflers on it. Maybe I will. I don't know, but I want to get the exhaust out from under the car. That's the main reason. So we're going to put a semblance of exhaust on it. But this is basically sewer pipe. It's not. It's semi-exhaust stuff. And that's what I'm going with on that. Whether or not I go mufflers, I don't know. If I do, not sure. Maybe some Flowmasters. I'm not sure on that. I haven't gotten that far down the rabbit hole yet. But remember that the main reason for your exhaust system is to get the exhaust gases out of your engine and, of course, some good sound. I mean, face it, in an electric car, you smash the gas pedal and you hear nothing. But in a 5, 6, 700 horse big block, oh yeah. I'm not going to insert all of the different cars in here as far as their tones. They're all on the channel. There's playlists for each different car. There's playlists in Scoops. There's an episode on putting the mufflers on that. There's episodes on the GTS where you can hear that. The recent episode on the 47 Ford. There's a whole playlist on all those cars, including the Charger. And I'll keep you posted as I move forward. I want to re-emphasize. I didn't do this on my biggest video on the channel is approaching, well, it's probably over 50,000 views now. It's every month. It's my biggest performing video. And I get flamed for that video all the time. The whole foundation of that video was streetcars. I wasn't even thinking about that when I made the video. I was actually answering a couple questions that some people had about their streetcars. And I did that talk about it Tuesday. It was a whiteboard episode where I went through the math talking about determining your engine CFM. But I wasn't clarifying that it was about streetcars. So, of course, you know what? I don't care. But I want to be sure that I'm clear on this one that I'm talking about street performance, not race cars. Okay, I mean, most race cars don't have exhaust anyway, or very little. But I am talking about street performance and your average stuff that most of us have. I don't believe in spending big money for stuff. You know that if you've been around the channel for a while. I like stuff that is tried and true by time. I'm not necessarily wanting the latest and greatest. And if I can save a few bucks here and there and put the money other places, I'm all about that. So that's my thoughts. It's my opinion. It should be yours. I'm kidding. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you Friday with another episode of My Car Shop. Rock!